The fog was still thick over the cold streets of Chicago in 2023 when Sarah Mills and Rex, her canine dog, began a day of duty in an area known as the city's red zone, a place where danger constantly lurked in the shadows and suspicious, racially prejudiced glances were never absent. Sarah bent down to stroke Rex, whose shiny black fur seemed to absorb all the surrounding light, creating an image both strong and resilient. Rex was not just a specially trained dog, but also the only close companion who understood her in this environment full of prejudice. From her very first steps in the police force, Sarah faced unspoken but deeply ingrained discrimination. White colleagues often threw her hostile looks, whispering words she couldn't quite catch, but which were full of sarcasm and disrespect. One colleague said while passing the locker room, "Let's see how long this little black girl lasts." Another whispered, "We don't need more people like her, just messing up the work of those who actually know what they're doing." Sarah knew clearly she was not only fighting criminals out there, but also battling a system rife with prejudice, where her skin color was an indelible scar. Rex, although not able to understand everything, also sensed the tense atmosphere every time they entered the station. A cold white trainer said, "That black dog never listens." Sarah tried not to let those words hurt her, but loneliness and pressure sometimes made her want to give up. Rex was the only support that kept her spirit strong. One late afternoon, while Sarah and Rex were patrolling a poor neighborhood, a group of older white youths muttered behind her, "Look, there she goes with that dog again. Maybe it's just like its owner. Worthless." Sarah held Rex's collar tightly. Her hand trembled slightly as she stroked the dog's smooth black fur, seeking some comfort amid the storm of prejudice. She whispered, "We will prove them wrong, won't we, Rex?" Rex responded with a soft bark, as if affirming their inseparable companionship. Before entering the courthouse the next day, Sarah looked around the courtroom. The atmosphere was heavy, not only because of the case she was facing, a serious charge of excessive use of force during an arrest that resulted in the death of an innocent person, while important video evidence mysteriously went missing, and many key witnesses dared not appear due to pressure and threats, but also because of the scrutinizing and biased looks from those present. Still, she maintained a strong and determined appearance, resolved to fight not only to clear her name, but also against a legal system full of deep-seated racial injustice and prejudice. Sitting below in the gallery, some white prosecutors whispered to each other, chuckling mockingly whenever Sarah caught their eyes. One prosecutor said contemptuously, "Colored people always think they can do everything. She's no more than a rat in this network." Sarah knew she was being judged not only for her actions, but also because of her skin color, but she refused to let that destroy her will. Beside her, Rex was always a symbol of silent loyalty, as well as perseverance before all challenges. Even upon entering the courtroom, where the law should have been fair, Sarah clearly felt the racial discrimination engulfing the place. Security staff, judges, even the jury displayed contemptuous attitudes. When the lawyers began their presentations, one white prosecutor said sarcastically, "We cannot allow someone like her to keep harming this society." The words implied not only the alleged crime, but also alluded to Sarah's race. At times like this, Sarah would look at Rex and find in his eyes the strength to stand firm. Rex was not just a canine dog, but family, an invaluable motivation for her to keep fighting. After long, tense work hours, Sarah returned to her small apartment, turned on soft music, and opened her diary. She wrote down the emotions bottled up during the day, tears mixing with sweat. "When will people see me as human?" she silently asked herself while stroking Rex's glossy black fur. Rex also had restless nights. The dog quietly whimpered, as if understanding his owner's loneliness. The friendship between human and dog grew deeper than ever, a silent yet powerful bond. Sarah not only had to face criminals, but also had to overcome invisible barriers within the force. Some officers looked down on her, despised her abilities, even mocked her despite her excellent performance on duty. In a high-level meeting, the cold fluorescent lights shone through the windows, phones rang loudly, the scent of diluted coffee lingered in the air, all creating a tense atmosphere. When Sarah proposed a new patrol plan, a white officer loudly said, "Let her make the plan." "We won't get anywhere with ideas from a black girl." The room fell into a tense silence. Sarah bit her lip, not responding, but inside a flame of anger burned fiercely. Though discriminated against by society, Sarah always had Rex by her side. The intelligent and loyal canine dog not only helped her in work, but also comforted her spirit when she felt weakest. Once during training, Rex was harshly scolded by a white trainer. "That stupid black dog never does anything right." Sarah stood up to defend Rex, angrily saying, "Don't judge him by his fur color. He is smarter and more loyal than many here." But her words were met only with doubtful looks and an eerie silence. That day's trial was held in a cold room, where the law was supposed to be fair, but the atmosphere was suffocating, with scrutinizing eyes and undisguised prejudice. Sarah stood in the courtroom. Her heart pounded loudly as if wanting to break free from her chest. Rex lay quietly beside her, his bright eyes shining like an invincible source of strength. The judge entered with a stern face, but his eyes held doubt toward her. A black woman standing before them facing a death sentence. The prosecutor, a white man with a cold voice, began with pointed words. "Your Honor, this is not just an ordinary case. It is proof of the necessity to maintain order and law in society, especially when individuals like the defendant, who do not understand their limits, try to challenge the law." He glanced at Sarah contemptuously, then continued sarcastically, "Not everyone is fit for the police force, especially someone with her background. We cannot allow emotional and unprofessional individuals to affect community safety." A mocking laugh came from the back. Sarah looked back and saw several white staff in the courtroom secretly laughing and shaking their heads. They seemed to say, "She doesn't belong here." Sarah suppressed her emotions. Her eyes burned like a spark. She silently vowed, "I will not let them ruin my life with this discrimination." When her lawyer began to defend her, details of the case emerged as unclear. Important videos had disappeared, camera data was corrupted, and many witnesses could not appear. Nevertheless, the accusations continued, fueled by bias. A white witness in the courtroom shouted loudly, "I don't believe her. We have heard too many unclear stories from people like her." That statement was not only skepticism, but also contained scorn for her race and the low social status attributed to her. The mostly white jury showed obvious dislike. One member whispered to the person next to them, "We cannot let this black person set an example for others. She must be taught a lesson." Those looks made Sarah feel judged, not only for the alleged crime, but also for being a black woman daring to stand up. The accusations were emphasized by the prosecutor and partly supported by ingrained social prejudice. This case is not just about law. It is a warning to those who think they can cross their limits, especially those not part of the privileged group. Sarah felt the attack was not only on her honor, but on her very identity and dignity. When it was her turn to speak, she bowed her head slightly, took a deep breath, and spoke resolutely. "I have served justice for many years in places where many fear to step. I am not a criminal. I am a fighter for community safety." Sarah looked straight at the jury, her eyes full of challenge. "And I will not allow my skin color or gender to stop me from doing what is right." Her words caused a stillness in the courtroom. Some people quietly fell silent, while others frowned, displeased with her unexpected firmness. The prosecutor paid no attention to this change and continued emphasizing, "She may call herself a hero, but her actions caused an innocent person's death." Sarah tightly held Rex's paw. The dog sensed the tension and showed support with a soft whine. The trial lasted for many hours with tense dialogues, deeply reflecting the hidden racial discrimination beneath the polished legal surface. A lawyer defending Sarah exclaimed, "We are trying a woman based on unclear evidence while ignoring important details. Is it because she is black that we cannot be fair?" The reaction in the courtroom was silence, but the eyes of some jury members revealed discomfort. At the end of the trial, Sarah left the courtroom with tired eyes, yet in her heart burned the belief that the truth would be revealed. Rex was beside her, never leaving her side, a vivid symbol of loyalty and indomitable strength. In the dark nights after the trial, Sarah faced loneliness deeper than ever before. She silently thought, "Why must I endure this? Why, just because of my skin color, am I treated like a criminal before any trial is even over?" Tears silently fell down her cheeks, mingling with drops of sweat from the stress. But she did not give up. Sarah told herself, I must fight, not just for myself, but for those like me, for Rex, and for the justice I once believed in. Outside the courtroom, groups gathered in protest, sharply divided into two camps. One camp supported Sarah, shouting, "Justice for Sarah! End racism!" The other angrily opposed, "Law must be strict! No exceptions for criminals!" The cheers echoed, blending into the tense atmosphere of a deeply conflicted society. When Sarah was separated from Rex and transferred to prison, Rex was also taken to the K9 training center, where dogs are trained for special operations. But unlike his teammates, Rex received no special favor or care. Instead, that black dog was treated coldly and suspiciously. On the first day at the center, Rex was locked into a small, cold kennel. The dog quietly lay down, looking around with eyes both fearful and resistant. The atmosphere in the center was suffocating and tense. The scrutinizing eyes of white trainers seemed to examine every gesture. A middle-aged trainer looked at Rex with undisguised contempt. His voice was cold and mocking. "That black dog never listens. We don't need ones like that here." His words pierced through the air like a dagger into the dog's heart. Rex whimpered, wagging his tail weakly, trying to show obedience but was rejected. Not only Rex, other canine dogs also faced discrimination. However, Rex was especially disadvantaged because of his fur color and independent, different personality. Many times he was left hungry, not properly trained, simply because people thought he was unreliable. A younger staff member, who also carried harsh prejudice, said irritably, "That stupid black dog just causes trouble. It has no future here." Rex did not fully understand the meaning, but sensed hostility, disdain, and isolation. He began to resist with painful, angry growls when forced out of the kennel for training. Once, when a staff member tried to put a leash on Rex, the dog growled as if to say, "I won't go anywhere unless she comes back." This resistance was not aggression, but a sign of desperation and fierce love for Sarah. Rex stared intently out the kennel door, waiting for the familiar figure of his only friend. He remembered every step, every tender glance from Sarah, feeling her absence like an unhealed wound. The days at the training center were sad, lonely, and full of defiance. Rex refused to eat, refused commands, quietly sitting in the kennel corner with his head down on the cold floor. The dog seemed trapped in a frozen world of loss and despair. The trainers tried everything: toys, treats, even reintroducing Rex to other dogs who had trained together, but all were in vain. Rex still did not move or respond. One day, an older trainer who had worked with canines for over 3 decades sighed as he looked at Rex and said in a deep voice, "I've never seen loyalty like this. This dog is waiting for something, or someone, who may never come." An undeniable truth was that Rex was not just an ordinary trained dog. He carried memories and a bond with Sarah deeper than anyone imagined. One night, when a careless staff member forgot to close the kennel door, Rex woke up and felt freedom for a moment. The dog quietly slipped through the gap and gently stepped outside. It wasn't that he wanted to run away, but because in his heart he had determined a single mission: to find Sarah. Rex passed through the long corridors of the training center, avoiding the cautious eyes of the staff. Every step was carefully considered, as a small mistake could lead to capture. Before leaving, Rex left behind a bottle, evidence found at Sarah's crime scene, carefully kept as a symbol of truth and faith. When Rex was found missing, the whole center was in chaos. Officers and staff coordinated searches everywhere, from training areas to winding paths. But no one thought Rex was on the way home, to the place where Sarah was held. In the turmoil, a young security officer who had worked with Sarah and knew well the special relationship between her and Rex, silently helped Rex escape by opening a small passage and delayed reporting Rex's disappearance. "Rex and Sarah have been through a lot together," he told a colleague. "Sometimes loyalty matters more than any rule." Thanks to that, Rex had a chance to leave the training center and start the journey to the prison. Meanwhile, Sarah was in prison, where thick walls could not stop the rising despair. She sat in her cell, eyes vacant, counting down each day until execution. In a quiet moment, she whispered, her voice weak but full of faith. "Rex, will you come to me?" Then a bark echoed in the prison corridor, soft at first, then growing louder, ringing in Sarah's heart like a signal of hope. She stood up, tears streaming down her cheeks, whispering, "You really have come." Chaos quickly broke out as Rex passed the security layers. White police officers reacted with suspicion and anger, shouting, "How did that dog get in?" "It's a security risk." The prison warden appeared, his gaze stern but unable to hide surprise at seeing Rex. He asked firmly, "Is this dog yours?" Sarah nodded, eyes determined. "Yes, Rex has never left me. He is my family." At that moment, the atmosphere in the prison shifted. Officers began to doubt, wondering if the dog could sense the injustice Sarah was enduring. Rex stood ready to protect her to the end. The prison door closed behind them. Cold fluorescent lights pierced through narrow gaps, casting faint beams along the long, dark corridor. Inside the cell, Sarah Mills curled on the cold iron bed, her heart pounding uncontrollably, full of chaotic thoughts. The death sentence had been passed. All doors seemed slammed shut before her, and the light at the end of the tunnel dimmer than ever. She closed her eyes, trying to stay calm, but footsteps and voices echoed from afar, making her uneasy. In her mind rang a familiar whimper, a gentle but powerful bark. It was Rex, her only loyal friend. Her heart ached recognizing the beloved sound. She silently called, "Rex, are you here? You really came." In the prison corridor, Rex, his sleek black fur soaked with rain and mud, moved silently but resolutely. The dog knew this path well. Every small detail was etched in his memory from days of training and companionship with Sarah. However, Rex's sudden appearance startled patrolling guards. A white officer glared at the dog and drew his gun with a wary attitude. "Who's that dog? How did it get in here? Who allowed it?" Shouts rang down the corridor. "Catch it now! Don't let anyone escape!" But Rex was undeterred. The dog struck hard against the iron door, growling defiantly, as if saying to all, "I will never abandon my friend." The prison warden appeared, his face cold and stern. He looked at Rex, then turned to Sarah standing behind the iron door, his expression a mix of surprise and suspicion. "Is this dog here because of you?" Sarah spoke, tired but resolute. "Yes, Rex is my family. He has never left me." The officers exchanged glances. No one spoke immediately. The atmosphere in the prison suddenly fell into an unbelievable silence. A few began to question internally. Could this loyal dog sense the injustice Sarah was enduring? Could he change her fate? A black security officer who had followed the case from the start stepped closer to the warden and spoke sincerely. "I believe she is not alone. Many people stand with Sarah and believe she is innocent." Those words seemed to strengthen Sarah and Rex, easing the tension among the officers. But not everyone agreed. A young, hot-tempered officer stepped forward and shouted, "We cannot allow a dog to disrupt prison order. Arrest it immediately." Rex had no intention to flee. He stood guarding Sarah like an impenetrable wall. His firm stance made many officers stop in their tracks. They exchanged looks of confusion and surprise. At that moment, the warden ordered the guards, "Cease fire! Let me handle this." He approached Sarah and Rex, his voice low but clear. "You must understand this is not a place for such actions." Sarah looked straight at the warden, her eyes shining with faith. "I did not come here to cause trouble. I only want freedom, and Rex came to help me." The warden nodded, looking troubled. "We will talk about this, but first you must comply with the rules." Chaos scenes continued outside the cell. Rex paced, growling whenever someone approached Sarah, showing high alertness. Many officers began sensing the unusualness in the dog's heart. It was not just natural instinct, but fierce loyalty beyond understanding. In the control room, white officers argued heatedly about the incident. "A dog causing such chaos here? This is unacceptable." "But did you see its eyes? It's protecting her like its life depends on it." "Life? It's just a dog. We cannot let it disturb the order." "But what if she really is innocent? Maybe we've been wrong to treat her this way." These questions and debates gradually eased tension in the control room, but also clearly showed division among officers on how to view the case. Sarah and Rex in the cell continued to resist unjust imprisonment. The rare moments of peace became more precious than ever. Rex lay beside her, his steady breath as if whispering, "We will not be alone." Sarah whispered in the darkness, "You are the only light in this darkness, Rex." The dog replied with a soft, loving whine. News of the unexpected rescue quickly spread into society. Human rights and anti-racism groups organized protests, chanting slogans, "Justice for Sarah! End racism! Break the injustice!" The crowds in the streets showed clear outrage and a desire to change a system that discriminated and oppressed. Amidst the storm, Sarah and Rex became vivid symbols of resilience and unbreakable friendship. They fought not only for themselves, but for thousands enduring similar injustice. Sarah looked at Rex, tears flowing. "Thank you, Rex. I don't know what I'd do without you." Rex gently licked her hand, a sincere response. The atmosphere in the courtroom seemed thick and suffocating. All eyes focused on a special figure, an anonymous whistleblower, a former Black court staff member who had decided to expose hidden truths. They listened silently to every word she spoke, every detail she revealed. She stepped to the witness stand, her voice firm, eyes burning with the desire for justice. "Your Honor, I have witnessed many unacceptable things during the handling of this case. The evidence used to accuse Sarah Mills is fabricated or deliberately edited. Witnesses have been threatened, many important data destroyed or falsified. All this to produce a predetermined outcome, to convict an innocent Black woman." Everyone in the courtroom was stunned. Many eyes were red and teary, and sighs of pain mingled in the tense air. Reporters zoomed their cameras, capturing this historic moment. The moment truth began to be revealed. The stern judge stood up, his deep voice resounding. After reviewing the newly presented evidence, the court decides to overturn the death sentence against defendant Sarah Mills and reopen the case for a full reinvestigation. Applause erupted, mixed with choked sobs from those who had believed in justice. Sarah could no longer hold back her emotions. She knelt beside Rex, whispering, "You saved me, Rex. Thank you for never abandoning me." Rex gently licked her hand, his eyes full of affection and loyalty. Outside the courtroom, hundreds of supporters gathered, chanting slogans, "Justice for Sarah! End racism! We fight together!" Not only locally, Sarah's story quickly spread nationwide and internationally. Human rights organizations voiced their support, and international media continuously covered the case, turning it into a symbol of the fight against prejudice and injustice. Activists organized workshops and forums discussing the end of racial discrimination in the justice system. Many young people were inspired by Sarah's story, ready to stand up and fight for fairness. Though exonerated, the wounds Sarah endured ran deep. She suffered sleepless nights, struggling with memories and psychological pain. Betrayal, hateful words once heard, and contemptuous glances made her many times want to give up. But Rex, her loyal friend who was always by her side, was the greatest source of strength, helping her stand firm. Whenever she felt weary, the dog came close, licking her hand, reminding her they still had to fight. Sarah decided to establish a K9 training center for dogs who had been abandoned or unfairly treated like Rex. She wanted to use her experience to help four-legged friends while continuing the journey for justice. At the center's opening ceremony, Sarah spoke with a powerful voice and fiery eyes. "I believe every life deserves respect and protection, whether human or animal. Loyalty and justice are values we must preserve." Sarah's case awakened many people. They re-examined deep-rooted problems in the justice and social systems, prejudices and racial discrimination still existing everywhere. Many previously indifferent people began to care. Many skeptics now stood up to support change. Sarah became a symbol, a voice for the voiceless. Sarah and Rex's story became a strong inspiration for human rights movements, driving new policies to reduce discrimination and promote social justice. Sarah was invited to international forums, inspiring young generations and all who fight for truth and justice. Time passed. After being exonerated and freed, Sarah Mills stepped out of the dark shadow of prison and the months of discrimination and unfair treatment. But the new life was not easy. The wounds in her soul remained, sometimes causing unbearable pain. Nevertheless, she never forgot her loyal companion, Rex, the canine dog who saved her not only with strength, but unconditional love. Rex, his fur still damp from spring rain that morning, as they walked together on a new path, seemed to understand the responsibility he bore. Not only to protect Sarah, but also to be a symbol of resilience and unwavering loyalty. Sarah decided to open a training center for dogs who had suffered abandonment, abuse, or discrimination like Rex. She wanted to make it a new home, where four-legged friends would be loved and trained to become brave warriors serving the community. At the opening, hundreds attended, from human rights activists, animal protection organizations to local residents. Sarah stood on the podium, her eyes radiant and voice full of enthusiasm. "We believe every life is precious, whether human or animal. Loyalty, justice, and love are values we will preserve and promote here. Our journey, Rex and I, is proof of the power of loyalty and justice that each of us deserves." Rex lay beside her, his eyes bright, as if understanding and empathizing. Though exonerated, Sarah knew the fight did not end there. Racism, especially racial discrimination, still deeply existed across many social layers, within the legal system, and even in everyday actions. Sarah became a strong voice for the oppressed. She participated in forums and seminars on social justice, animal rights, and anti-racism education. Her story was widely shared, inspiring many to stand up and fight for truth and justice. Every time she appeared in public, Sarah always brought Rex, a vivid symbol of loyalty and an unwavering belief. Sarah's case not only changed her life, but also awakened society to systemic injustices. Lawmakers began reconsidering regulations and procedures to reduce prejudice and enhance fairness in the justice system. Many agencies and social organizations collaborated to build training and education programs against racial discrimination, while enabling marginalized groups to access justice and social equality. The image of Sarah, the resilient woman, and Rex, the loyal canine dog, became a global symbol. Their names were recorded in many books, articles, and documentaries, spreading messages about the power of loyalty, justice, and faith. Sarah's training center flourished, becoming a second home for canine dogs who had suffered harm, and also a nurturing place for young activists ready to continue the fight for justice. Under the warm sunset, Sarah sat beside Rex on the training center's porch, looking toward the distant horizon with eyes full of hope. She silently vowed, "The fight is long, but the light of justice will always guide us. With Rex by my side, I believe I will never be alone." The dog gently licked her hand, as if responding to the lifelong companionship promise. And the story of Sarah Mills and Rex, the loyal friend who never abandoned her, continues on like an undying flame in the heart of everyone brave enough to stand up for truth and justice.